Café Idowu. This is our educational series for tech and non-tech founders, meeting once in person and once virtually each quarter, just to help each other grow their companies. My name is Dawnn. I am the content creator and the communications coordinator here at Innovation Works. Also, you may know I'm a brave soul wearing an Eagles jersey, so funny story behind that. I actually did not mean to wear this jersey. I actually meant to wear a hoodie, to empower, African Americans, but I left it at my mom's house. So I'm stuck with the Eagles. But here at Innovation Works, we take companies to the next stage of growth with funding, expertise, and a network of connections to help startups succeed. We are one of the country's most active investors, bridging the gap between ideas to future growth, and the only fund to exclusively focus on the Pittsburgh region's high potential companies in hardware, software, and life sciences. Some of you may know our Alpha Lab programs, like Alpha Lab Health, Alpha Lab Gear. We're also starting the robotics factory coming out in April. At this time, I would like you to meet one of our featured speakers, Shelly D. Hammond, the Vice President of Programs at the Advanced Leadership Institute. Shelly drives programming and partnerships to support the mission of the Advanced Leadership Institute to educate, develop, and connect positive Black leaders for executive advancement.
I'm not sure I really need this. Can you help me read okay?
No, you need it. It's loud out here.
Is it? Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. Number one, good morning. It is truly my privilege to be here with you this morning. And I'll be here all the way through. And at the end, happy to touch base with any of you once we're done this about. As was mentioned, I right now am part of the Advanced Leadership Institute, which is in partnership with Carnegie Mellon University. And it started about 5 years ago, and it truly is to partner with key corporations within the Pittsburgh region, and it's about to expand a little bit further, to Black talent. So I remember Evan coming to me when, he's like, hey, you think you want to do this? Okay. So I'm like, yeah, I got some flexibility now, no problem. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, so this is for Black people, but it's going to last, like 2 sessions maybe? There's not that many. There's plenty of Black talent here, which is, I think, just an epiphany for a number of companies, and the people who are coming to the table, working with around that is just really just absolutely amazing. So I'm excited about where we're going. The broader impact is exactly why it is that you're here today, though. How is it that we have that commitment and help to raise the entire community up? That's connects to every single one of you as well. So again, it's for a greater good. It's trying to make sure there's intelligence and experiences being leveraged for meaningful and sustained change here in the region, and even way bigger than that. So what that basically means is somebody has a seat at the table, and you're making decisions about policies, resources, people, direction, priorities. And that really is, you give me like 5 minutes, I'll start preaching to you here in a second. To me, this is absolutely a great opportunity where I get to take a whole lot of things that I've learned in life and pay it forward. Happy to do that in any way, shape, or form that helps to have whatever it is that you're envisioning for your life, your efforts to move forward as well. One other thing that I just want to share, and I think this is probably the most important message that I can share with you. I've had the pleasure of living around the world. My first job was, I went into the Air Force. I wanted to learn to fly. And how many of you are here from Pittsburgh? You grew up near Pittsburgh? Okay, I'm a little Black girl that graduated from Pittsburgh High School, and I want to fly planes. My own mother thought that was stupid. I had an English teacher that did, who encouraged me over and over and over again. I listened to her instead. My first assignment was at NASA at Edwards Air Force Base after the Challenger blew up. Little Black girl in Pittsburgh. No, don't mind you, I did it to talk in class, I did it really well. But again, just because we can't conceive of something doesn't mean that it's not possible. You have all kind of thoughts right now that you're going to lay down at night, you're excited about this thought. There's going to be 10 other thoughts that go, no, don't do that. You're not going to eat. You can't pay for that. Nobody's going to support that. Nobody's going to buy it. Don't believe it. Don't believe in it. With that departing advice that I will give you, surround yourself with a highly selected, to your benefit, board of directors. These aren't the people that are smiling in your face and nodding, going, oh yeah, you're cute, you're cute. No, get people who you know and trust that have expertise, that will tell you the truth, because they're invested in you. And that is one of the most important things I would hope that you're able to take away from this. Be brave, walk courageously, build people around you who you know will tell you the truth, and they're invested in your success and how that success is defined. It's defined and evolved as you're moving down the road that you're headed. So it is truly an honor and a privilege to be here with you all today. I know the panel's getting ready to get started. I'll give it back to you, or to Joel, and to one of you. But thank you so much for your time today. It's truly an honor and a privilege. Look forward to meeting more of you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would like to introduce Joel Burstein, the President and CEO of the Beam Collective.
Good morning, everybody. Well, I'll invite the panelists to come on up and join me. Not a formal invitation.
Hey, Joel. Yes, it's great to be here with you. It's a pleasure. How you doing?
All right. So I need everybody to grab a mic. I think we do have enough.
Yes.
There we go. So,
And you really actually need to use mic, no matter how loud you are, because the HVAC system is loud.
Okay.
all right.
Not Damola, right?
So we're going to do a little introduction real quick. So I'll start, and then I'll just sort of go down this way. But I'm Joel Burstein. I founded, along with 3 other partners, an organization called the Beam Collaborative. The Beam Collaborative is a very new, innovative way of doing supplier diversity. As far as we know, we are the only organization of its kind in the United States. Our focus is really around getting our anchors, or our corporate partners, to determine exactly where their needs and gaps are, and then we build, support, expand, we attract, or we do M&A activity for Black businesses in order to solve corporate problems. So we do it in reverse, but that's who we are, and that's what we do. I'll pass this on to Damola.
Yes, so hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I
I
figured
think
so.
you do that. I think you do that.
Yeah, right? So, I mean, first of all, good morning. Very excited to be here. It's been a 9-year journey to get to Innovation Works. 2013, or 2012, I brought a 15-year-old to Pittsburgh, my son, right? Wale, my co-founder, CTO. And I brought him to Pittsburgh because he got enrolled at Carnegie Mellon studying electrical and computer engineering, and also been featured on CNBC's 20 Under 20 Transform Tomorrow. And as a Black man, it was like, well, we were the only Black family on there, and some of the people that were in the same cohort with him, you know, you've heard of Ethereum, you've heard of Figma, $20 billion acquisition from Adobe. And I just believe that regardless where your background, regardless what your environment, that everybody has the capacity to maximize their potential. So I created multiple publications, multiple content around hip-hop entrepreneurship, hip-hop and tech. And my son got inspired by this one publication I created called Toyz. So he started creating sustainable tech. Like, why doesn't he have solar panels on these tablets? And then he had like this concept for self-powered smart glasses. And I was like, wow, I gotta figure this out. So I started teaching him semiconductors. I started teaching him material science. I started teaching him design. I started teaching him organic chemistry. And he was looking at all this, and we were like, well, where are you gonna be able to get that breadth of education? And when we did our campus tour at Carnegie Mellon, I'm seeing all these buildings and talking to all these disciplines of engineering, and I'm like, we're home. Now, a year later or 2 years later, we would start Toyz Electronics. I had to take you to that to talk more about what we're doing. And initially we were supposed to make hardware. Now, rather than making hardware, we started making hardware. I was like, well, it'll be cool, do a hackathon. There's a ton of people that will come and make apps, but we wanted it to be diverse. But what we realized was there wasn't education and openings for people of color, women, different sexualities to get into tech. So I'm like, this isn't right. So we saw that a student, a young woman, brought her sorority sister. And they, for the first time, created an app on iOS using Unity. Android using Unity. And I'm like, you're on to something here. You created a safe space. You're having people change their majors. Your son's emotional well-being is really strong, even though his other roommates had dropped out, they're African American. He's now doing better. His other roommates able to get a master's. He's doing music. You're bringing all of these elements together. And eventually Carnegie Mellon will create the ID8 program, which is interdisciplinary. So at Toyz, we started to shift it. So rather than saying, hey, we want to make our watches, why don't you change the way people are educated to get into the tech ecosystem? And that worked. So we did a hack, we started bringing buses and kids to Pittsburgh that were black and bringing them to the Entertainment Technology Center. So now you're gamifying education to be inclusive. The oldest of those kids enrolled in Carnegie Mellon this fall. So then that led to Uprise, and some of you have seen us through Uprise, because it was like, you're doing all this work in the community, how are you going to make it a scalable and repeatable product? You got to make it as an application. And that led for us to an ICO research. The ICO research had two solutions. One was, how do you find ways to collaborate between HBCUs and and prestigious institutions? So we created a collaboration. Toyz gamifies training for the future of work, and I gave our first person story so you can contextualize actually what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Vernard.
I gotta go behind him?
Yeah, you did.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vernard Alexander, affectionately known around the community as the Connecting King. By day, I'm the director of the E3 Alliance Equitable Entrepreneur Ecosystem. I'm also the owner of the Minority Networking Exchange, a business that I founded 17 years ago. I host a variety of business and social networking events within the community, and I'm also founder and partner in CKD Suites, which is a 1,200 square foot event space in the heart of Homewood. If you've ever been to Everyday Café, it's right next to Everyday Café. And I'll stop there.
Thank you. Thank you. Dawnn.
Good morning, everyone. I'm very happy to be here. Feel very privileged, very excited. I work for EARN Staffing Solutions as the Senior Managing Director, and it's an African-American owned staffing firm leveraging over 75 years of experience with staffing, HR consulting, and diversity, equity, and inclusion, training, coaching, and workshops. I work closely with employers and candidates to match them to the correct skill set and identify if it's a correct culture fit. And it is recently formed right after COVID. So we formed, it stands for Executive Action Response Network. And the reason why we formed as African Americans and in corporate leadership roles in Pittsburgh market, we decided that after the George Floyd murder, the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the transgender laws that in the 17 states that have passed, we wanted to react to the corporations that were supporting with broadcast messages, TV, commercial, radio, stating that they were supporting everything that was going on. So we collaborated and formed this organization to help elevate and diverse candidates, particularly focusing on African Americans, and placing them in the workforce, whether it's as a C-suite executive, entry-level, college students, mid-level, or senior level. So, happy to be here today, speaking to you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawnn. So I'll share this. I'll share some stats with you that we learned. So when we created Beam a few years back, people asked us why. Like, why black businesses and why not diversity as a whole. And we sort of had to think about, we knew anecdotally why, because we're black, right? We knew why, but that we needed to justify that. So we did some research. We talked to 150 small businesses, $50 billion anchors, 13 different cities, and came to the model that we created. We did an extensive amount of research over 2 years. And I share these stats with you to justify why black is its own service area that needs to be focused on, and how the broader diversity angle is actually hurting us. It's actually hurting us, and I'll explain it for you. So there are two stats that I like to share. Number one, the largest black-owned business in Cincinnati is about $400 million. The largest black-owned business in Tampa is about $1.1 billion. The largest black business in St. Louis, Missouri is about $11.5 billion. So to be clear, that was Cincinnati, Tampa, and St. Louis. I didn't say New York, DC, Atlanta, places you'd think. By comparison, the largest black business in Pittsburgh is only about $40 million. By comparison, that's a big challenge. I mean, let's just say that's for what it is. Now, there's a lot of cities very similar to this, but we saw this as a big differentiator here in Pittsburgh, that we are farther along. And the reason that matters is because if we can't build businesses that can support our smaller businesses, our economy doesn't function as well as other places. So it's important that we understand why black businesses matter to our communities, from the top all the way down to the bottom. Number two, if you look at the total U.S. receipts, the total sales in the United States, the numbers are the same for about 2020 and 2018. There's about $13 trillion of sales in the United States. Of that 13 trillion, 1.7 trillion went to women-owned businesses, 1 trillion went to veteran-owned businesses, 800 billion went to Asian-owned businesses, 400 billion went to Hispanic-owned businesses, 127 billion went to black-owned businesses. That means that 13% of the US population represents less than 1% of the business revenue. We are not suggesting that the others don't matter. We're just suggesting that black businesses need their own set of strategies, thoughts, and differentiation in order to grow. We have a different problem, a very dire problem. And so I share those stats with you because when someone says, why black, why does this matter? This is why it matters. These numbers are what's impacting our community in a multitude of ways. So I wanted to share that with you. With that being said, Vernard, I want to start with you. What do you think is the biggest hurdle for supporting the businesses that you support in all the years you've been working and connecting in the community? What do you think are some of the big hurdles you've seen?
Start with me, huh?
Well, you said last time you had to follow Damola, so I was like, well, let me start.
Hard question, but it's not really hard. In my work between E3 and the work that I do with my personal business, and throughout this panel, I'm gonna go back and forth between the multiple roles that I wear. Access to capital is always going to be, top two, right? But access to programming is, if it's not 1B, it's 1A. And I was telling Dwayne, I think Dwayne and Jane this earlier, I know plenty of black-owned $1 million revenue generating businesses that have never been through an entrepreneur program, that probably have never heard of Idowu, right? And of course, they're non-tech businesses, but a lot of folks in the communities who are doing really well, they've done it because of help of friends and family, but they've never been through, never had that, just assistance from any entrepreneur support organizations, right? And so many people, they may hide their revenues and how much they made. They may not have the best people on their team as far as strategy, legacy planning, et cetera, et cetera. So, I totally believe that, when it comes to $1 million revenue black-owned businesses in a region, that there's more that have never been through a program than those who have actually been a part of entrepreneur support organizations, right? And I think, I guess a second part that I would like to add to that is there's about 150, maybe 200 organizations in Western PA that dabble in entrepreneurship, ranging from organizations that will do a one-off workshop once a year to organizations that run programming 365 days a year. I would say less than 5% of those organizations are Afrocentric. Many of those organizations do not have Black people that are program managers, that are senior level managers, executive directors, and many of them barely have one person of color on their board of directors. So we could start right there.
Thanks. Dawnn, I'll ask you the same question. You know, sort of for your staff, the people you're staffing for, like, what are some of the biggest hurdles or blocks they run?
The biggest hurdle would be is obviously when you submit the diverse candidate, sometimes you have to advocate for them. So if they're missing skill qualifications or if they're missing educational requirements, things of that nature, they may have the experience, but they're shy of the education. So advocating for that diverse talent, pointing out the key performance metrics, why this diverse talent can do the work that you're looking for. Also, I would say the second challenge is when I meet with organizations as far as doing business development and partnering with these organizations, a lot of times they're checking the box. So there's a certain quota, well, we have to have diversity within our organization. So I challenge them to take the next step. Is it that you're just checking the box? Or would you really like to retain this talent? Because are you going to come back to me next year and say, I've lost that diverse talent and I need you to replace it? So what I try to do to challenge the organization is dig down and ask the why, who, what, where, when, what is your strategy as far as framework around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And if they don't have a framework in place, we'd like to work with them to put that in place. And once they do put it in place, then we also help them plan it, execute it, and roll it out within the organization. So I think the biggest hurdle is getting the organization to go beyond checking the box and really doing the work that requires around diversity, equity, and inclusion, as opposed to just talking about it. We've talked about it long enough. EARN is a response network to what is happening in the communities and what's happening today in the country. So challenge them to really look at the retention piece. And so I think those are the biggest hurdles that we face.
Yeah, I appreciate that. So Damola, as an entrepreneur, in Pittsburgh, what do you think have been some of the big roadblocks that you all have run into?
I mean, I guess it took us a long time to get here, but I think that when I told the parents and I told people about what we're doing here in Pittsburgh, coming from the DC area, we call that Rosewood. I mean, or we talked about that, like that's actually a real, if Black Wall Street actually survived in Tulsa, it would look like PG County, Maryland. Because in PG County, Maryland, you have one of the top 15 richest counties that's majority black run. You have highly educated blacks, highest concentration of black wealth. You have people with six-figure incomes. You have a whole ecosystem. But I think that it's fragmented. I've been covering entrepreneurship literally around the world. I pioneered covering hip-hop and entrepreneurship, so I've been going to communities. I went on tour with 50 Cent, Jay-Z, and Beyonce, but when I go to a city, I go into flea markets. So I'll go up Penn Avenue. I remember coming to Pittsburgh, Penn Avenue, going to the east, going to Homewood, and it's like, where are the levers to come? Because I think that it has to be multi-generational. When you've gotten to a point of your 30s and your 40s, you got your kids, taking that entrepreneurial risk is hard, especially when you don't have a pathway in. Because it takes money, you need banking, you need financing, and this is a banking town. But if you're in the black community, how are you going to get a loan? Who's going to take a risk? How are you in the ecosystem for people to give you that $50,000, that $100,000? Like I've seen how the game is played. It took Wale and I 10 years from when he was 15, a wonder kid, to get that 150 from R.K. Mellon. Now, the kids he was competing against, who were 5 years older, they got 100,000 the first year. The next year, they got 4.1 million. Then they got 20 million. Then they sold for 20 million. Wale and I are 10 years behind. And we're lucky. We're actually funded as black entrepreneurs. In the city, it doesn't even happen. There's like few Wales and Damolas. It don't even exist on a multi-generational level. So that's the biggest thing. I'm just showing that as illustration of capital. Some of them have failed, some of them succeeded. One of them created Frank that was a fraud, sold it for 175 million. She was on the same cohort with Wale. They gave her the money and didn't give him, and she sold a fraud. People know Damola and Wale do the work because when you go around, you see our impact. When you talk around, you see, oh, I know Toyz. Oh, I saw them. I did this. So that's like the biggest thing, convincing people with the capital to actually believe that you have a market. I'm like, that's 25% of the population in the city. And actually give you the resource, capital, support, relationships, so that you're in the circle, not out of the circle, so the people that will benefit from that moving forward.
All right, so I was going to say something to Vernard. I know how you feel now, because I'm not going after that either. All right, so new rule. So you go last, Damola. I will take that right now. But no, I was going to say, to add to that piece, is I think, you know, exposure, right? We don't even know what industries, what businesses we should be starting, right? From a tech standpoint. We just don't know. We haven't had experiences in so many different sectors. And so one thing we learned from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston was that black people tend to start businesses with low barrier to entry. A low barrier to entry business has a high failure rate. We've seen that. Anybody know why we start low barrier to entry businesses? Access to capital, right? It's not complicated, right? And so sometimes I think part of the problem is we don't even know which sectors we should be in, where they're high-performing industries, and not everything has to be in technology, right? There's lots of stuff. There's lots of areas and spaces, and so I think we also have to be capable of looking at what else is out there, what industries we want to focus on, and really kind of taking our talents. We've seen people with chemical engineering degrees from universities, major universities, that weren't able to survive in the chemical engineering space and end up starting restaurants, right? And then struggling through a very low margin business when, quite frankly, we need chemical engineers to start businesses, but they don't even know what that is. They've never had good mentorship and so on and so forth. And so, you know, I think what you're gonna hear today is that the problem isn't one solution. There's a lot of different entry points to solving this, and it takes a significant effort on all of our parts to make sure that that circle stays filled and we're all supporting each other. And so, let me ask you a different question. Let's look at this from a more positive standpoint. Share a time that sort of stands out, where you sort of helped somebody, or a good example of when you personally elevated or help the company in particular. Like I said, Damola, you are going last. So, Dawnn, you get to go first this time.
Thank you.
I don't know if that's really much better, going first or last.
I would have to say both, you know, in the interviewing process with different organizations, but also supporting different entrepreneurs in the community. As far as we're very involved in the Launch Mentor Program with STEM, supporting women who are in that field, recognizing them. We also hire contractors to work with EARN, elevating them. For example, AMAC Media is one of the organizations that we support. She's here today, owning her own marketing industry, so we support that in working with her. We also support nonprofit organizations such as the Young Motivated Black Kings and Queens, which are entrepreneurs that are developing in the Pittsburgh market. And I also think that elevating them through negotiations. So for example, as I mentioned before, we had a black male who did not have the education requirements. How we elevated and inspired him is by me advocating him through that employment process, pointing out his experience, getting him an offer, and once that offer is on the table, negotiating, they offered him $25K lower due to the fact that he did not have the education requirement. So how we elevated him and inspired him is by advocating him through that process, negotiating the 25K higher, a salary for him, and then also a $10,000 signing bonus. So I think that is elevating Black talent that maybe, that is underrepresented. And so I think by doing that through the employment process, we're elevating them and showing that they're just as competent and talent as anyone else. So I think that is elevating and being able to inspire not only in the corporate world, but also lifting up entrepreneurs that are starting companies.
Thank you. So Vernard, I'm going to ask you a different question. Because we have a post-COVID question, and when you think about connecting to people, right? Like our businesses are really a function of who we know, how we get, right? Because we've seen people that really don't have great products, but know a lot of people that's at Damola's point and get access to things. We should know more people. We should do a better job of networking in a post-COVID world, right? How do we do this effectively?
If we're speaking specifically about the Black community, they don't trust most of the local organizations, right? Just from past experience of not having access to capital and not getting help at different entrepreneur support organizations that they were referred to, right? So one of the things that I do is, since I became part of P3, about a year and a half ago, I started posting office hours in the community that rotate around town. And a few months after that, a local bank wanted to get involved. So I have a branch manager of Key Bank. We're in the community together 1 or 2 days a week, and we just set office hours and we meet with people wherever they're at in their journey. And then through that, we refer the entrepreneurs to organizations that we trust through E3 and through non-E3 members as well. One entrepreneur that we met with owns a cleaning company, and probably one of the biggest Black-owned cleaning companies in the region, grossing about $30,000 a month. They got into a little bit of trouble during the pandemic with payroll or unemployment tax, and almost destroyed the business. As a result, this person had to lose funding and different streams of income, and had to resort to payday loans to pay their staff. And the interest on those loans equal over $6,000 in interest a month. So through the conversations with us and meeting with Key Bank, we were able to direct her to some free resources to raise her credit score up over a course of a couple months, that she didn't have to pay, for any credit help. And Key Bank was unable to help her with the need, but then we sent her to another partner, which was Neighborhood Community Development Fund over here on the north side. And she was able to receive a $40,000 loan, which within a month wiped out her being in the red, to being a profitable business again. So this is some of the things that we're trying to do with E3, is to just create these pipelines and to create paths that are really easy for entrepreneurs to get the assistance that they need.
Appreciate it. So we're going to go to about 10:30. So I'm going to ask you another different question for all three of you, and then we can open it up to some Q&A. If there was anybody that you sort of, Damola, I'm going to start with you. Anybody you admired, or anybody along the way, it could be somebody person or somebody you looked up to. I mean, who would you say you admired that helped you sort of model your business career or whatever?
Actually, I'll tell a story of ancestor Booker T. Washington. And it's a huge Pittsburgh story that a lot of people may not even realize. Booker T. wrote a letter to Andrew Carnegie in 1890 about a library he wanted to build in Tuskegee to educate former enslaved people. And it took Andrew Carnegie like 10 years to really get back to him for this $20,000. So in 1900, when Andrew Carnegie was founding Carnegie Institute of Technology, he sent that $20,000 to Booker T, and he created a library. 3 years later, he had William Taft, who would be future president of the United States, Andrew Carnegie and a few people came down there to Tuskegee. And there's a picture, I used it in my deck a number of times. And you come out there and you see all of these distinguished people. And Andrew Carnegie was so impressed, he gave him 1.1 million, which is over $1 billion in today's time. That would endow Tuskegee and Hampton. My mom's oldest sister went to Hampton and took my mom in and brought her to Boston when her and her husband got there to MIT and Tufts. And then my mother met my father, and that brought me to life. So I'm always connected to Andrew Carnegie, Booker T. But Booker T was also about entrepreneurship. Then he also built a number of schools. So I'm like, well, you could be a modern day Booker T. All you need to do is find your Andrew Carnegie partner to be able to educate descendants of former enslaved people to be able to come up that ladder with entrepreneurship, education. And he also was in the makerspace because he wanted to teach them technical skills. So that's why I was like, well, why is he doing the maker? Why is he doing entrepreneurship? Why is he doing this? Like Booker T. You know Booker T and Andrew Carnegie's story. That tells what Damola is doing with Toyz. I'm inspired by that. And I don't have no beef with WB Du Bois too. I love the, the Niagara Foundation and NAACP, so I combine both. But Booker T. Washington.
I appreciate it. Vernard?
I'm gonna tell two quick stories.
Go for it.
All right, and Joel, I know you know her. I'm gonna mention Tina Daniels, Concrete Roads Construction Development. 4 years ago, she did not have enough money to catch 2 buses to go to the Hill CDC every day to participate in a construction build program. Through that, she started the process of learning how to fix houses, and then she started flipping houses, right? She just ended 2022 with $2 million in revenue. Again, access to capital. She was working with an organization for about 8 months and needed some serious money for one of her deals, and that didn't go through. So we had to pivot and send her to an outside investor who helped her obtain $500,000, because that 7 or 8 months actually cost her money. So, just creating those partnerships with other organizations where, folks can get these access to capital and to grow their business. The second person, she's in the room. Missy, put your hand up. Hi, that's Missy. She's the owner of Tug Butter. Well, her 9-year-old son has autism, and she wanted to develop something to actually keep him busy and something that he was interested in. So they created a line of apple butter products. Amazing, right? And that's pivoted. So she meets with us regularly at the Café, usually every quarter or every other month or so. She's obtained her certifications from the health department. She's recently graduated from an E3 program on her own, entrepreneur-based program, working through a commercial kitchen now instead of doing it on her stove. And, now working on plans on food trucks and other products. So, just seeing those stories and highlights of, folks who are taking that idea and expanding, that's, what makes me smile every day.
Appreciate that, because there's what's crazy about that is there's so many of those. There's a lot of folks out there doing good things for good reasons, good causes, good stuff. We gotta highlight more of that stuff. Dawnn, who for you?
So there's a few, but I'll make it quick. One is Andrea Matthews. She is the founder of the Children's Sickle Cell Anemia Foundation. Her child had sickle cell, and she wanted to create a network and a pipeline of support for other parents who were experiencing that. So she's just amazing with her passion, her dedication, and teaming up with a network of doctors from both Highmark and UPMC. She has really created this foundation. It's 20 years now. So she's been an inspiration. I grew up with her. Another inspiration to me is the founders of EARN. Jessica Brooks Woods, Mark Shepard, George Robinson, Tony and Benita Canella. The reason why they are inspiring to me is because they went through the challenges that you all were speaking of as far as starting your own business and being a Black professional in Pittsburgh, having the challenges of being funded, having the capital, but also roadblocks of being held to a higher standard than our counterparts. And they were able to sift through that, get backings, not necessarily in unconventional methods, not the traditional ones through banks. So they had people believing in them and what their mission was, and just the dedication to that. And that's inspiring, and it doesn't feel like a job to me. I may have had other positions in corporate America, but when I wake up every day and do what I do, it's to impact the lives of the Black and brown communities and to make a difference in their lives. So it doesn't feel like a job. It feels you're driven to that passion. And so that's what inspired me, and that's who inspired me.
Thanks, Dawn. Appreciate it. Appreciate all of you. So thanks for this, all of you. Let's open it up to some questions. We have some time. Let's see if there's any questions out there. Don't be shy, please.
Jane's gonna run a microphone around.
Take one.
Thank you.
We'll share it. Give it back.
Good protocol.
Good morning. My name is Muriel Alim, and I'm with the National Math and Science Initiative. We're a national organization that supports getting our kids access to STEM, particularly when they're in schools. We partner with school systems to build up their capacity to prepare our students. But my question really is, I think I've heard from all of you that our community is lacking certain resources or knowledge about those resources. Where are we curating that? Where can we find, or who is curating that information that we can go to? Period. Question mark.
Vernard, go ahead.
That's a great question. And I actually was a former middle school teacher back in the late 90s. And I just learned, maybe over the last couple months, that PA actually has, I guess in their standards, that entrepreneurship should be taught in schools, but I don't think it's a regular thing. And I think because of the challenges that many public schools have, that's probably not something that's on the forefront. But I encourage people to always, especially if they have a youth that may be interested in dabbling into entrepreneurship. There's Penn Hills Charter Entrepreneur School. It's a phenomenal school. It's a K-8 school, and every kid in the school either has a job or they have their own business. And the curriculum is based around hey, even to buy your own school supplies, you actually have to earn money, right? And so everyone has a job and they earn money, and every Friday they get to spend their school money on whatever they like, whether it's movie day or, buying, a set of pencils. But I think it's a great question, but I don't think in the greater community that that's being taught. Catapult of Greater Pittsburgh has a youth entrepreneur program that's a 6-month program, and that's one of our E3 members as well. And then one of the teachers at the Penn Hills Charter School, Deborah Titus, she has an organization called the Shine Institute, where she has her own nonprofit and she teaches entrepreneurship. But again, Catapult, maybe 15 youth entrepreneurs a year. The Shine Institute, maybe 20 or less. So there's still a huge gap in the potential of youth developing their ideas.
Actually, and those are a lot of great things going on. If you're available next Thursday, 12:30, I'll be actually at the Schwartz Center of Entrepreneurship talking about my 20 years of work in that space. We need to actually be able to connect. Our tagline for Toyz is learn today, earn tomorrow. So we're combining STEAM and entrepreneurship and maker education. There's organizations like Startable that's part of Idowu that's actually building that in. And in our platform, we're teaching kids how to make these digital assets, sell these digital assets, so that the future of work is not just working for somebody else, but it's what I've done for my son, where I had him in front of venture capitalists at 15. He was able to talk directly to Gene Sperling with Obama's White House. He was able to talk to Lauren Powell Masters like Code 2040, and it's that opportunity. So we bring kids from the community. So we brought Nazareth Prep to the Schwartz Center of Entrepreneurship, so that they could also see, like, here's how we do what we do. We went into Wilkinsburg to the Boys and Girls Club. Here's how we built Toyz. So, and I give these connect lectures at the Carnegie, at CMU every year, going through my work. So here's how 50 Cent did it, but I'm breaking it down in our app so your students can do their math assignment, go out there, interact with, okay, how did Alicia Keys get started at 16 at Columbia University creating songs in A minor? Or how did Judy Brunson, who's running innovation at Cummins, do that? Or how did Sylvia Rowe, the most senior black woman, or most senior woman, do her entrepreneurship journey being the chairwoman of Epic Records?
And I'll argue that they need to see our local people who are doing those
Yes,
things.
we could, it's a platform, it's technology. So what we're able to do is we can bring an interview, bring new content, highlight them, and be able to engage. So I would love a number of people here on the panel to be able to bring them in on that too.
I want to ask you, extension of her question, how do we get more people to learn about what you do, what you've done?
Yes, so Jay and Terry are supposed to help me with that, and Jordan and the team, and I think like that's part of why we're here with Idowu, because they saw the potential of this to be transformative. I think that kids can't be what they can't see. So seeing a 15-year-old, like hearing that a 15-year-old, a teenager like my son came to Pittsburgh with entrepreneurship in tech, and that they could also do that too, and then you can actually gamify what did he do to get him to Carnegie Mellon, and it's an actual level in the game where you could recreate his concept and watch the video of him pitching in front of investors. So it's just more or less amplifying. But ma'am, please, I'd love to be able to touch base with you too at Toyz.
Well, I wanted to expand upon what you said about local opportunities, and you mentioned Startable. I'm Shelly Brown, I'm the manager of the Startable program here at Idowu, which is the youth version of what Idowu does with young people. And Vernard, you mentioned the Penn Hills Entrepreneurship School. We're working with them and Deb Titus, so we have a strong partnership with them. So if you're interested, who has asked the question for me? Okay, awesome. If any of you are interested in learning more about what we do with Startable and young people and teaching them the tenets of entrepreneurship, but then also helping them take it to the next level, come and see me. Yes, Startable program.
Yeah, and I think it also has to be a little bit of multi-generational too, which is what we're trying to help parents understand. What are little things you could do to support your kid? Like the lemonade stand could grow to being in all the Whole Foods, right? So like there is that dream. For me, my son was like, well, I want to reach 1 billion people. And I'm like, that's a lofty goal, but we're going to figure that out. And that got us here.
Real quick before you ask a question, it's almost 10:30. Those who are welcome to stay, you're welcome to stay and ask a couple of questions. But we know if some people had some time issues and need to go, please feel free. Izzy, please.
Good morning, everybody. So in regards to my business, which is Tug Butter, my 9-year-old autistic son could not, as of 2 years ago, could not read, write, speak in complete sentences, so on and so forth. And so what I took were old school recipes. My father was from a farm. I took all these old school recipes and began to incorporate the STEM and things that I knew that he could understand on his care of him, because the doctor's like, you've got to come home and maintain him. The church was incredibly influential, and Vernard as well, into getting people to me to buy these products for me to sell, so on and so forth, and then which connected me to Shannon over at Unsummer Cares. What I want to know is where are when we talk about the ladder going up, and those businesses and organizations that need to reach back, where are those people or organizations who are willing to take a chance on people like me, who systemically and systematically did everything that the rule book said in order to make sure that my product was solidified. I went to culinary school to become a graduate, to make sure that those recipes were bonded properly, understanding botulism and all those things. to make sure that I had a sustainable product, to make sure that as I host the autism play date, I'm able to teach other kids to do the same and eat healthily, and then be able to later on sustain folks in my community that are behind me, teaching them those things and being able to bring them up. So where are the organizations and businesses willing to take a chance on somebody like me that did everything as they should by the rule book, that now want to move forward?
So I'll say this, obviously Idowu, there's the startup recipes Jim Rubel has. There's also another place we're part of, which is Ascender, which the Dealey runs, that's on Penn Avenue by Bakery Square. They actually have a $500 to $2,000 Black business grant that they're going to be given with Dollar Bank that is due February 28th. So like that's a good place. The Dealey is very well connected. I think that looking at what Jim is right here too, with a lot of those startup recipes, Joyce is also here. I don't want to call it. Okay, so it's like right there. And there's also, I would say, what has helped us is jumping in these competitions too. So I think next year, later on in the year, RK Mellon would have another open competition for their project-related investment. We were a winner of those, so that's an opportunity there. Uprise is also something, because I think that the fact that you're teaching people these different processes, I think Uprise and Joyce could talk to you about that probably is a good thing, and especially your story with you and your 9-year-old son is something that will resonate, and a lot of your education, career